All right, this update is brought to you by Mercedes-Benz. Aztecs, they lost last night in the Sweet 16 to UConn, ending their season in an amazing run over the last 2 years. They went to the national championship game and back-to-back Sweet 16 appearances. UConn will now face Illinois for the right to go to the Final Four this Saturday. Padres, Giants, game 2 of the series tonight at Petco Park. Joe Musgrove on the mound for the Padres against Kyle Harrison of the Giants, 6:40 first pitch there. The fully electric EQS sedan for Mercedes-Benz is innovation on a magnificent scale, available with the epic 56-inch touch-sensitive hyperscreen. The vehicle is all electric. The feeling is all Mercedes. Learn more at mbusa.com/EQS. What's going on, San Diego? Jon and Jim on a Friday, except it's just Jim today because Jon is he's flying back from Boston after the Aztecs game last night where they lost to UConn. So Jon will be rejoining me on Monday again. I'm down here at the Naughty Barrel on the corner of 9th and Market. It's a fantastic day here downtown San Diego. Literally not a cloud in the sky. Fletch is with me on site. Brent back in studio. Just a reminder today, short show, very, very short show. So we're going to try to pack in a lot of stuff into the first hour here because we have more Sweet 16 action starting at 4 p.m. But next week, we'll be back on Friday. I believe they do not have a home game next Friday, but every Friday home game here for the Padres, we will be at the Naughty Barrel. So if you're making your way downtown, we are going to be here every Friday for every home game for Padres games this upcoming season. It's a great spot, great food. I had a burger a little while ago. The French fries are fantastic. It's like the crispy, skinny fries, Fletch. So those are like some of my favorite fries. And of course, drink specials here. So we're at the corner of 9th and Market, Naughty Barrel. I'm here until 4 p.m. I'm going to the Padres game later tonight. So if you see me, come on by and say hi. I'm going to check out Gallagher Square. I'm excited to see that. I'm excited to watch Padres baseball, especially with how they've been playing early on in the season. But we're going to start today with that Aztec game last night, Fletch. Look, what they have done, this Aztec team, for the past 2 seasons, I know last night wasn't pretty. I know that the final score was what it was. It was a 30-point loss. I get that. But I still think that these players, these coaches, they have to feel extremely proud of what they accomplished. And I think just seeing them after the game, Dutch was smiling. These players were not sulking their heads. They weren't, crying. And that would be totally fine if they were, because it's understandable. Like, their college careers are over for, Trammell and Ledee and Jay Powell and potentially Lamont Butler. These guys' college careers are done. So it would be totally acceptable and fine if you saw some of these players and they were upset and they were crying, but I didn't get that sense at all, Fletch. What I got was an extreme amount of pride for what this program has accomplished, not only this year, but also last year as well. In the 2 years with the core of this team being what it was, to reach a Sweet 16 back-to-back years, to reach a national championship game, and the score was what it was. Honestly, I think, they put up a damn good fight in the first half. It was a 9-point game at halftime. They're the first team this tournament to have UConn be trailing at any point of the tournament so far. I got
even if it was just 2-0, but still.
Even if it was 2-0, but
they had the lead at the media timeout.
They had the lead at the media timeout. It was 9-0. 10-9 at the media timeout, and they traded blows with UConn for the first 15 minutes of the game, and I just have nothing but admiration for what they have accomplished for the last 2 years. And if you're an Aztec fan, you can't help but be proud of what you saw the last 2 seasons. Even with a 30-point loss last night to UConn, it just didn't feel this year, honestly. It was a down year from maybe like a standard standpoint as far for the regular season goes. You finished 5th in the conference. You didn't win a Mountain West Conference tournament title, but guess what? You made a Sweet 16 and you have that to hang your hat on. And so I just look at this year coupled with last year as the two best seasons in program history. I don't think you can argue with that. I don't think that you can sit here and say, well, this year was better than. No. These last 2 years, you put those together. I put this on social media. Two best seasons in program history, easily.
It's pretty impressive, Jim, when you think about preseason, what we said about this team, and people would say, well, what do you need to see out of them to say last year wasn't a fluke?
No.
And I think across the board, most people said Sweet 16 appearance.
Yeah.
Check.
Sweet 16 appearance, check.
There's going to be a banner hung in Viejas Arena, and maybe it's not the ones you wanted to be hung. It's not a conference championship. It's not a conference tournament championship, but it is a Sweet 16, which I'll take over the other two pretty much any day of the week.
Yeah, and there's a couple quotes here that I just want to read off that just kind of, says everything that I'm saying about the pride for the last couple of years with this program. And the first thing from Dutch, he mentioned that it's not about losing the game last night. It's about the journey. It's about the journey that this team has had over the last 2 years. And the one person that is most proud of what they've accomplished is Dutch for what these kids have gone through. They're not at the highest, program in the country. They're not at the Dukes, the North Carolinas, the UConns, the Kansases, right? They have to work just a little extra harder to get to places that other schools, may have an easier opportunity. San Diego State, the culture here, the culture that they've built, the culture that Brian Dutcher has built, and it has resulted in, if you're a fan, exactly what you want to see. Sweet 16 runs. They made a Final Four. They made a national championship game for the first time in program history. And it's just, you feel a lot of pride. And you look at what Jaden Ledee accomplished this year. You look at what Darion Trammell has accomplished the last 2 years. You look at Lamont Butler. Like, when those guys exited the game last night, Fletch, I don't know if you saw, it just, I don't know, it looked different. Like, they came off the floor knowing, yeah, we've just faced probably the national championship team there with UConn, and we have nothing to be ashamed of. Not have gotten that national championship, which let's be real here. It's extremely hard to win a national championship. But they did something that they can say that no other team in program history has done.
And this year, it's going to be extremely hard for any basketball team not named UConn to win a national championship.
Right.
Going back to the start of last year's March Madness tournament, UConn has not won a game by less than 10 points in the tournament.
Yeah.
And by the way, when you look nationally, San Diego State's 7-2 in their last 9 March Madness games. That's second best in the country behind UConn.
Right.
Like, UConn is a buzzsaw, and that word has been used a lot today. And I think it'll be continue to be used throughout the rest of this tournament because they are so good. They are so deep. They are so annoying that everyone on their team, at least in their top 8, can score from pretty much everywhere on the court. And they are just a really good basketball team. And as annoying as Dan Hurley is, he's a really freaking good basketball coach.
Right.
But the moment you're talking about with Jaden, J. Powell, and Darion coming off the court,
And Lamont, too.
and Lamont, all giving Coach Dutcher big hugs on their way to the bench.
All
for the last
smiling,
time
knowing
season.
like what they accomplished. It's like, it's emotional because those core players, Jay Powell's only been here for a year, but he's obviously a senior. But, with Lamont, Jaden, and Darion, all three of those guys have accomplished the last 2 years. I didn't get a sense of like, oh man, we didn't do what we wanted to do. I got a sense of they felt extremely prideful in
They should.
what has happened the last 2 years. I think Darion had a quote after the game where he was mentioning, this is the reason why I came to San Diego State. I came to San Diego State for this exact reason. Make deep runs in the tournament, have an opportunity to play on the biggest stage, and win a lot of basketball games. Well, check, and check. I mean, they made a deep run last year in the national championship game. Darion Trammell was the MVP of the regionals. And then this year, making a Sweet 16 run, back-to-back years, first time in program history. Yeah, man, I look at this team, and I look at what they've accomplished. To replicate that, because they're going to take a lot of core players on the team next year, and a lot different in the years to come. But you trust Dutch, you trust his coaching staff to put together another team like this to make runs in a tournament to the Sweet 16. And you have that one magical last year where they get to another Final Four, or they get to thing is, it's possible with this program. You're not sitting there saying, "Oh, this team is never going to make the Final Four. Oh, this program's never going to make the national championship." With Dutch here, guess what? It's all possible, and it's such a big thing for this program for the years to come, including the NIL, the transfer portal, to go out and say to these kids, "Look, we can do it. We can go to a national championship. We can go to a Final Four, right? We can go to Sweet 16s consistently. We can, they make the championship in the Mountain West Conference tournament every single year with Dutch as the head coach, so that's an easy thing to sell. But all of that combined is such a, you're a player out there, and you look at that, say to yourself, like, yeah, I want to be part of what they are doing in the state. So again, the score was last night. UConn beats everybody by the end. Aztec kept it close, and then UConn pulled away in the second half. I think you want to break down the game, right? I think the number one thing that game last night was the offensive rebound. When UConn gets just as many offensive rebounds as you have total rebounds, you're not beating them. Like, you're not winning any game with any team getting as many offensive rebounds as you have total rebounds in that game. And then the shooting and the scoring droughts came to bite once again. Jalen D started off hot, really well for that first half there, but gets the second foul. And I said yesterday, if we see Miles Heidi out there for more than 4 minutes, it'll be a problem. And saw Miles Heidi out there. Nothing against Miles Heidi. It's just in that game for him being a freshman, it's hard going up against guys that are, veterans and older group, and UConn, a team that is really, really freaking good. The end of that half, they make a three. You miss a three. Darren Chamel's hit, 7 buzzer beaters to end, halves this year. He missed it and kind of felt like that was a chance to get a little momentum going into the second half, and that didn't happen. And UConn came out and did what UConn did. They just buried this Aztec team like they've buried every single team they have played this year. And you don't have to hold your head down. Hold your head high. Every team loses to UConn. And guess what? If UConn goes on to win the national championship this year, Fletch, you can say the only teams that we have lost to in the NCAA tournament the past 2 years has been the national champion. Okay, that's great. 7-2 in the last 2 seasons in March Madness. And those 2 losses are to UConn. Dude,
and I'd be shocked if UConn doesn't win the national championship. Like, Purdue's probably the only team that can do anything to them because of Zach Edey versus Klingon.
Maybe, yeah.
But I will see. UConn is so deep, man. What I take away from yesterday, and it's actually a positive in my eyes that Miles Heidi got as much time as he did, and it's a positive that Elijah Saunders and Miles Bird were on the court so much, because that's who you're going to be relying on a year from now. Right. And when you look at the work ethic that Jaden Ledee had this year, who do you think he was in the gym with that whole time? Elijah Saunders, Miles Heidi.
Yeah.
So if those 2 guys can embody the Jaden Ledee work ethic, who apparently was working out like 3 times a day outside of practice, if they can embody that moving forward, this program will be just fine. Like, it wouldn't surprise me at all if they're back in a Sweet 16 next year.
Yeah. And if they're not in the Sweet 16 next year, or if they don't go to a Mountain West Conference tournament, or they don't go on to win a Mountain West Conference regular season title, it's not the end of the world. It really isn't. That it might take a little time. That losing as much as they're going to lose in the veteran leadership that they're going to lose this year, it might take maybe a season or 2 to potentially get back to that standard. But what we do know is Dutch is great at building a program, and he's great at recruiting, and he's great in the transfer portal. And that's who you trust. You trust Dutch to get it done.
How about Dave Velasquez after the game last night? The first thing he said was like, yeah, this hour always really sucks, but then the coaches get right back to work. The transfer portal's open. They got to go get them.
I know. And it leaves a little bad taste in your mouth that you won't be able to go on and recreate that magic that you had from last year, getting into a Final Four and a national championship game. But, if you want to look at one little positive, like you just mentioned, Fletch, the coaches get another, 2-3 weeks head start on what they did last year. And look what happened. Last year, they're in the national title game. And they got Reese Waters to come here. They got Jay Powell to come here, 2, big pieces of this club this year. So now you get a little extra time. you get a little extra time to go out and recruit and rebuild this program up to where the standard is, which is, making runs in the tournament and winning Mountain West Conference regular seasons and winning, Mountain West Conference tournament championships. And so you trust Dutch, you trust this program, you trust the coaching staff, and you can't help but be just proud today of this team. All right, we are down at the Naughty Barrel on the corner of 9th and Market. We're doing a little condensed show today because we have March Madness Sweet 16 action starting at 4 p.m. So me and Fletch, we're going to be down here until 4 p.m. every home game this year on Fridays. We will be at the Naughty Barrel. So if you are going to home games this year on Fridays for Padres, come on down, hang out with us, have a beer, and then head on down to Petco Park right afterwards. We will be your first stop for all Padres fans heading to Petco Park this year on Friday home game. Speaking of the Padres, yesterday, Fletch, I said this on social media. I said it on the wrap-up show last night, and I think I said it at the end of the show yesterday, through all the craziness that was going on downtown. That win for the Padres yesterday, it felt not only different, but it was a win that you rarely saw last year. Last year's team, they go down by just a run. It felt over. And not only did it feel over, the team was telling you it was over, with quotes from players in that clubhouse saying, hey, man, if we go down by a run, it just feels like we just give up. We feel like it's an insurmountable lead. Well, yesterday, Yu Darvish pitched well. This team going up against a really good pitcher in Logan Webb. I think he was the runner-up for Cy Young last year. And he pitched a great game for the Giants. And you have ish situation in the 7th inning there where your bullpen comes in and gives up a couple runs, gives up the lead. You start thinking to yourself, here we go again, right? Like I bet you a lot of Padres fans out there were thinking the exact same thing. Here we go again. We play good baseball and we go down by a run, and we're going to see what this team's made of. We're going to see if this team can actually come back from that insurmountable one-run lead or one-run deficit, excuse me. They did. And not only did they do that, they tacked on 4 runs in the bottom of the 7th inning. They had really good situational hitting. And the best part of their whole comeback yesterday in the 7th inning, that rally, it was started by the bottom of the lineup. And that was a huge question and continues to be a huge question going into this season, is how can the bottom of that lineup produce? Is that bottom of the lineup going to be a huge weakness on this team? Or is that bottom of the lineup actually going to turn that thing around and maybe be kind of a strength or positive of this team? Not to the level of where you're always relying on them to get, rallies going or to put up big numbers. But, in situations like, do your job, right? Go out there, do your job. You have a runner at second base with no outs. If your job is to go up there and get him to third base, you get him to third base, right? If a runner's on third base, less than 2 outs, your job is to get that runner home. And I felt like in that 7th inning, the situational hitting from this team was exactly what they were missing all of last year.
Yeah, good thing that loser said this thing about giving up. He's gone out of New York. What was his name?
You know what? I'm not even going to go that route with Juan Soto.
What was his name?
Juan Soto. Look, I would have liked Juan Soto still on this team this year. I know people have this other opinion that he's not a good baseball player and that he dogs it. And
dude, he's
that
incredible
clubhouse guy. Like, yeah, he's one of the best players in baseball. You want Juan Soto on your team. But I digress. He's not on this team anymore. We got to move on at some point. And I think what this team is this year is you're going to have what you saw yesterday is that's who they're going to have to be.
I hope so.
Move the runners, situational hitting, be good with runners in scoring position, get the run home. And, that's what they did yesterday.
It happened in the 7th inning, but in the 4th inning, that felt like last year's Padres. Bases loaded, no outs, couple weird plays,
it did.
Lots of little ground balls. In the Tyler Wade play, you could say what you want to. I think it was kind of a BS call by the umps. Out of the baseline, he wasn't even out of the dirt.
Yeah.
But when you look at the 4th inning, like a chance where they really had an opportunity to capitalize and get a big inning, a crooked number on the board, and they only get 1 run out of that inning, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's the situations where you want to see the Padres really strike. And then they did it later in the game. So kudos. But what Padres team are we going to see all year?
Mm-hmm.
yesterday was a special environment. It was an emotional environment at Petco Park.
Yeah.
You got to think everyone had a little something extra to play for. Like, we cannot let down Shields Seidler, who was throwing out the first pitch.
Yeah.
It had something a little extra to it. What Padres team are we going to see 2 or 3 months from now when the magic wears off a little bit? That's what I'm curious about.
Yeah, what's the identity going to be of this team? Last year's identity was they couldn't hit worth what with runners in scoring position. They were one of the historically one of the worst teams in baseball with runners in scoring position for a good chunk of last year, until the end of the year when it didn't really matter. And they got the average up with runners in scoring position, but still, so far this year, you get what they did in South Korea. In game 2, I think they were 10 for 24 with runners in scoring position. And then yesterday, you go 4 for 12 with runners in scoring position. So far, so good. You know what they went last year, Fletch, on opening day with runners in scoring position versus the Rockies?
Is it 0 for something?
0 for 10.
Yeah.
0 for 10 last year on opening day with runners in scoring position. This year, you go 4 for 12. Not the best in the world by any stretch.
Problem solved.
But at the same time, much improved than it was last year.
But it was the situational hitting, right? If you give me one thing to be really encouraged by with what I saw yesterday, it was when they got in situation when guys were on base. Not everyone was swinging for the fence.
Yeah.
It was more just, okay, well, let's get the ball in play. It's Petco Park. It's hard to hit home runs here. Let's see what happens if we just get it out there.
Yeah.
Small ball wins with this team, and that's how they're built right now.
You had a situation in the 7th inning where Xander Bogaerts came through. Jake Cronenworth, who's a big question mark for this team, hitting 3rd in this lineup. He's going to have to produce, and so far for the first 3 games of the year, he's absolutely produced in that spot. All right, coming up next, more on the Padres taking on the Giants tonight, game 2 of their series, first Friday night game of the year at Petco Park. Also, Kevin Acee, he's going to join us at 3:45 down at Petco. More on Jon and Jim right next on San Diego Sports 760. All right, coming up next, Padres Giants game 2 of the series. We'll break that down. All right, this update is brought to you by Mercedes-Benz. Aztec season is officially over after they lost last night to UConn in their Sweet 16 matchup, ending their amazing run over the last 2 years. UConn will now face Illinois for the right to head to the Final Four. The Padres Giants game 2 of their series tonight at Petco Park. Joe Musgrove on the mound for the Padres versus Kyle Harrison of the Giants, 6:40 first pitch. The fully electric EQS sedan from Mercedes-Benz is innovation on a magnificent scale, available with the epic 56-inch touch-sensitive hype screen. The vehicle is all electric. The feeling is all Mercedes. Learn more at mbusa.com/EQS. All right, Jon and Jim down at the Naughty Barrel in the corner of 9th and Market, getting you ready for Sweet 16 action starting at 4 p.m. And then later tonight, Padres Giants game 2 of that series, 6:40 first pitch there. So the lineup today, Fletch, it's a little different. And when I say a little different, it does not involve Jackson Merrill.
Oh, why bring him up?
Jose Azocar is starting in center field tonight. The reasoning why Jackson Merrill not starting, I would assume, is because Kyle Harrison is a lefty.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Graham Pauley has yet to make his debut this season in the field for the Padres. I think he had a pinch hitting opportunity in South Korea, but other than that, have not seen him in the field. And look, I get it, like matchup wise, but one thing I don't want to see is it turn into a true like matchup situation where Jackson Merrill's not starting when any lefty's on the mound.
No, I don't get it, Jim. And I understand Jackson Merrill. He very well could be the future of this. Made history yesterday when Ken Griffey.
He is the future of this.
Yeah,
team.
But when you look at it, how much better could Jackson Merrill be 3 years from now if 1 or 2 of those years was spent getting better in the minors? Like, we've seen this play out before. You bring someone up too early and it fails. I don't think that's going to happen with Jackson Merrill. I think from everything we've heard from him, he's going to be great. But if you're going to bring him up, play him every day. I don't like that decision at all.
I think so far this season, all of Jackson Merrill's at-bats have looked really good. I think yesterday he drew that walk in the 7th inning, and he put together really good at bats so far this season. He doesn't look overmatched. He doesn't look like a guy that's out of place. He doesn't look like a guy so far. It's 3 games, I get it, but so far does not look like a guy that doesn't know what he's doing at the plate, doesn't have a plan at the plate. He looks like he does, and I think his swing plays well. I think his approach and his mindset so far is exactly the type of mindset that you want from a rookie, from a 20-year-old player. And if it's just a one-off tonight that he's,
a rest day 4 days into the season,
not facing Kyle Harrison,
what?
I get it. I don't want to see this continue down for the rest of the season, where whenever a lefty's on the mound to start for the opposing team, Jackson Merrill's not in there in the lineup. Maybe this is a situation where, and it's early, obviously, in the season. Don't worry, I'm not saying it's early like last year people were saying it's early. I'm saying it's like literally it's March 29th. And I can understand if the thought process is not, oh, we don't want to put him out there because they're facing a lefty. But because a lefty's out there, I want to get some other guys that have been on the bench a little more playing time and put them in the field and make sure everybody feels like they're getting at bats and everybody feels like they're playing instead of just sitting on the bench. I can understand it from that aspect because Jose Azocar, he's going to be playing a lot this year, whether you like it or not. I think Jose Azocar is going to be out there a lot for this team, defensive replacement, a guy that's going to be pinch running a lot, a guy that's going to be used out in center field a lot as well when Jackson Merrill is not out there. So Jackson Merrill not in the lineup tonight. Jose Azocar is. All right, coming up next, Kevin Acee, our Padres insider. He is down at Petco Park. Mike Schilt, he's talking to the media right now. I have not seen what Mike Schilt has said to the media. If there's any news that's coming out from Mike Schilt, I don't think there'd be any news from this team 3 games into the season so far on March 29th.
Well, Jackson Merrill got benched, so there's
he
something.
Did not get benched.
He got benched.
He didn't get benched. He didn't get benched, man. But we'll hear from Kevin, who's down at Petco Park, our Padres insider, coming up next on San Diego Sports 760. All right, coming up next, our Padres insider Kevin Acee joins us from Petco Park. Stay with us. All right, Jon and Jim back here at the Naughty Barrel in the corner of 9th and Market, getting you ready for the Padres and Giants game 2 of this series. Our Padres insider, Kevin Acee, joining us right now inside of Petco Park. Kevin, I started the show by talking about just yesterday. That game is a game that I don't think that team won many times last year. You might count how many that they won on, two hands, but it felt different how they ended up winning that game. Did it feel different to you?
Yes, it did. Absolutely. And I don't, I'm not saying that you are, but like, we don't want to make too much out of it. But the fact is that's 2 games in a row, right? Like, didn't you, if you were a cynic, which, hey, you're not. So, kudos to you. But if you were a cynic and you had watched enough Padres Dodgers games, that second game in Korea where the Dodgers just kept knocking, you're like, okay, they're going to lose this one. And they didn't. And Manny put the dagger in them. And yesterday, they lose. They go up. They lose the lead. They go up late. They lose the lead. And then, boom, answer back inning, 4 runs, dagger from Jake Cronenworth. And, they win that game. So, yeah, absolutely.
There was a moment in the game, Kevin. I don't know if you saw it. You might have because it was all over social media. But Manny Machado, there was a runner on third base early in that game. I believe it might have been the 5th or the 6th inning. And less than 2 outs.
Yeah.
He grounded out or popped out, I think it was, and he tried to break the bat over his knee. Now, it's the 3rd game of the year. To me, that screamed that this team is putting such a huge emphasis on situational hitting and driving in the run at third base with less than 2 outs. Like, that to me is something, that was much needed compared to last year.
The aesthetics of it were good, right? Like, I don't know exactly. I didn't want to ask Manny about it, but I needed to ask him about one other thing. And there are nights when you have 0 or you have 1 question for Manny when he's walking through the clubhouse. And I had one, and it was more important to ask him about playing catch. But I wanted to ask him, how was his thigh? And, what was that about? Like, did he feel, because it was obviously he's frustrated. That was an opportunity. Did he feel like that was a pitch he should have done more with, and he got it off the thin part of the bat? that's like, I wanted to ask him what exactly that was about. But yes, the aesthetics, I can see why that was highly pleasing to folks who have wondered at times about certain things. And also, look, they have stated, they've been very forthcoming about wanting to start fast. They've been very forthcoming about every at-bat situation. And what's that goal of every at-bat situation? It's so that in at-bats like that, they're getting hit.
Absolutely. And then that seventh inning happened, and it was started by the bottom of that lineup, which is fantastic for this team. And one player not in the lineup today in the bottom of that lineup, Kevin, is Jackson Merrill. And I know that Mike Schilt just spoke to the media. Is this because of Kyle Harrison, lefty on the mound, or is this a situation? So it is?
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I'll be honest with you. I was talking with another coach at the time, and somebody else there for me, but this seems pretty straightforward. This guy's pretty good. I mean, there's a certain kind of lefty that I would imagine that Jackson Merrill is going to sit against. I don't know that it will be all the time, but this is, hey, this guy's going to be an everyday player, but there's a couple things. They are going to protect Jackson Merrill. They think this kid can really be a contributor as a rookie. But he is 20 years old. He is making a big jump. Keep him at the bottom of the order, unless, of course, something merits, a hot month or whatever merits that he goes up. But right now, the plan is to keep him near or at the bottom of the order and to protect him against certain pitchers.
Graham Pauley, are we expecting to see him anytime soon? Or because I think he's only had maybe one at bat, and that was in Seoul, Korea. I know Eggy Rosario is out there today. But is Graham Pauley going to be seen anytime here soon? Did Mike Schilt talk about that?
If it is, it's because I think Tyler Wade isn't playing like he is. Look, Tyler Wade, the veteran, got the nod. Tyler Wade is probably the more long-term guy. The minor league season hasn't even started. And so what Graham Pauley is missing is the minor league exhibitions and some, work in Arizona, right? What he's getting is big league clubhouse and work with other big leaguers around him and big league coaches. And so when he comes back, because I would think, at all things being equal as they are right now, when Manny starts playing third, there's not really a place for Grant Pauley here because what I assume the impetus behind your question, the impetus behind our questions to the Padres is, well, what is this young guy doing here if he's not going to play? Well, right. At some point, that does become an issue. I don't think it's an issue for the Padres right now.
All right. Kevin Acee joining us on San Diego Sports 760, Padres Insider. We're at the Naughty Barrel until 4 p.m. A couple more for you, Kevin, here. Xander Bogaerts, he is off to a hot start. 3 games, I know. But he's doing things that he was not doing last year already, which is hitting with runners in scoring position. And at the top of the lineup leading off, is that a position that you envision him staying majority of this year? Or could it change, or just because he's playing well and they're just going to ride with it and have him be the leadoff hitter until he doesn't, play well?
When he started off last year with that 31 game on base streak, whatever it was, 350 batting average, and then at the end of the season when he was almost, close to that, this is who he was. That's also why, he got what he got, $25 million a year from the Padres, is because he's a guy who can get on base. I mean, I would love to count the amount of broken bat singles that guy has. And it's just a knowledge of how to get on base. He's a good hitter. He's a good bat to ball guy. As a veteran, we talk about Jackson Merrill's skills. Xander Bogaerts been doing this in the majors for 10 years. He led off some for Boston. I think this is the spot now. I mean, Soto's gone. I think they're having trouble. Fortunately for them, Jake Cronenworth had a nice spring where he saw the ball, and that's translated. But I think this is probably the spot that they would love for him to stay in.
And after the game yesterday, Xander mentioned how kind of important yesterday's game was, to get off to a good start. And I heard you talking with Darren about it doesn't matter what we think about. Maybe like momentum or whatever the case may be. It's about what the team thinks in that clubhouse. And if they believe in momentum and if they believe in, good starts mean good things, then that's all that matters. And did you the sense that you're getting from this team so far this year is we need to get out to a way better start than we did last season?
Yes. And that means primarily playing better. But I remember the spring when I was talking to Manny, and he was talking about, play good baseball and all this, and I'm all, so you're talking, results don't matter. Nope, results matter. And results always matter. Look at me like I was an idiot. So, which is a fun game to play with Manny.
Yeah.
So, yes, they would like to. I commend them for that. They acknowledged, like, we need to not put ourselves in the situation we were last year. Speaking to what you were just talking about, I go back to 22 when they were winning a bunch of close games, when they were playing a certain kind of way, and maybe they were getting lucky some nights, but the way they saw it, they believed in themselves late in games, right? And guess what? When it happens once, then twice, then three, then four times, then you know what? Who cares whether it's actually literally true or not? If that team that's batting in a tie game or down one in the ninth inning or extra innings believes that they're going to get it done, that I do believe that can make a difference. Doesn't mean they're going to win every time, but so you keep stringing together games like this, and yes, that's to borrow Mike, what does he call it, an identity game? That these can become identity games. I want to, like we talked about at the start, not get carried away, but I love where you started. It's these last two games are definitely the kind that are good for a team to have early in the season when they've been talking about this kind of baseball all spring.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've seen it with these last two games in Korea and yesterday. It just feels different. Hopefully they can continue that. It's 2 games, but so far so good. Kevin, thank you for joining us. We'll talk to you next week. All right.
Hey, thanks for keeping Fletch away from me. Okay.
Oh, no problem. My pleasure.
You want some, Kev? I'll bring it on.
Talk to you guys later.
All right. See you, Kevin. All right. Yeah, it's a mindset that and an attitude and an approach that this team has been talking about all spring, and so far for the through the first 3 games of the year, it's shown on the field, and it's about maintaining that. You're not going to have every game be a game where you go 4 for 8 with runners in scoring position or 10 for 15 with runners in scoring position. You are going to have offers. You are going to have games where you might not score any runs. You are going to have games where you may score 1 or 2 runs. But for the majority of this season, the mindset that they have, it's got to be, doing the little things right, getting the hits with runners in scoring position, and actually, showing that on the field, not just talking about it, because there was a lot of talk last year, and there was not a lot of a long year, but so far, so good. All right, that's going to do it. Quickest show in the history of Jon and Jim, kind of. We will be back on Monday. Jon will be back. He's flying home from Boston right now. Again, every Friday, home game for Padres with Naughty Barrel. Come on by and say hi to us. All right, coming up next here on San Diego Sports 760, more Sweet 16 action. Stay right here. San Diego Sports 760.